Welcome to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm your host, David Khourshid, also known as David K. Piano.
Together we are coding compadres, animation amigos, Boolean buddies, and keyframe companions.
And we'll be creating an animation from scratch live on this stream using HTML, CSS, and a crap ton of JavaScript. Actually, just a little bit of JavaScript.
Hopefully just a tiny bit. Before we start, I wanted to thank you all for your support of Keyframers. The last stream pushed us over the edge to finally become Twitch affiliates, which brings a lot of great benefits, including the ability for you all to subscribe right here on Twitch. And those subscriptions just kind of help support us and encourage us to keep going.
Yeah.
And there's a few special things when you do that, including an emoji, I believe. So get on that. We also have a little bit more interactivity today. So as that comes up, I'll bring attention to it. But if you aren't a follower of us yet, now is a great time to do that. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and do that throughout the program and join us in the chat, and we'll all have a good time together.
Yep.
So what are we working on today?
All right, so we have this cool little dribble that I found.
Nope.
Are you showing it?
No, actually. Give me just a moment because I've got.
No worries. Well, yeah, I'll just talk about it. What's cool about this one is it uses some of the same techniques that we've been using in previous screencasts. However, it takes a different approach to it, and it's so it's more of an animated layouts type of thing. And so these types of layouts are really cool because they're immersive. They really pull the user in and feel like they're transitioning seamlessly from one view to the other. And so that's why I like this one a lot. I want to work on it.
This is a nice dribble called Sibar, Sibar, by Zach Steele Eklund. And I've posted the link in the chat. If you want to join us there, you can get that. And it's a cool little animation, kind of a typical gallery style page, maybe kind of news articles or something like that. Let's see, doesn't specifically say in the description there, but nonetheless it's a cool effect. Using those sliding layers and stuff. So let's break it down a little bit more with our favorite extension GIF scrubber here. So if we watch it at a quarter speed, you can see how the first one expands, pushing the others out. And I actually want to deviate a little bit from the dribble here. The way that the other items move out, I'm not a big fan of that. Like I would like for them to either like stack on top of each other or the staggering to happen a little bit differently.
I feel like we could play around with that.
Right. I think there's a little bit of improvement to be had there.
Because we don't necessarily have to do animations exactly how they look.
Right. And you can see as the image expands, it's almost like it's peeking out and revealing more of the image, and that's where the sliding layers technique comes in, and then they slide right back. Beautiful. Sorry, let me adjust a few things on the stream here. Okay. There we go. All right. So we've done a little bit of setup work as usual, just to help the stream move along, and hopefully you all can follow along here. let's see. All right, David. So walk us through what you've done so far.
Sure. So it doesn't really look like anything so far. Let's see. I want this to get a height of like 70%. All right. So basically what we've done, this is not going to be using CSS Grid, and so you saw a little preview of what's happening there, but instead we're just going to be doing things display block, and we're going to have two views. We're going to have the view where we have all the images side by side, and then a view where you click an image and it expands, right? And so we'll take care of the expansion a little bit later, but we're just getting set up right now, so I have things side by side. And this is not using CSS Grid because if you remember from the sliding layers before, it's basically two layers that are both technically the full size, right? So they're the full size at first, but they're positioned in such a way where they look smaller than they actually are, and they're hiding their contents, right? So yeah.
It's a little bit tricky in that way. The layers are not as they appear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it will be fine. And so, for example, over here, you see this big blue thing. Hold on, let me actually image. Man, lots of nesting going on. Let's get rid of some of that nesting. Let's actually show an example image here. And I have an image of San Francisco. Of course, we will add our own cities to the rest of these. The original images were people, and I got the veto for goats, so we can't do goats today. Maybe next time. We'll see.
Nothing against goats, but they've got those crazy eyes.
They do have those crazy eyes. It's like they're gonna eat your soul or something. All right. So anyway, we have a photo here, and I guess we could. We'll position it later. It's just the top of the whatever that bridge is called, the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that.
Are there any actual gates on it? Is it a gated
there
gated bridge?
are no gates, none that I've seen, really. It's just a damn bridge that anyone can drive down.
Before we get too deep in here, just looking at the CSS, so you've got the article, and these are all position absolute, top 0, and then a simple SAS loop to set the left position based on the index there.
Right. So the important thing is that all of these are full width. These are not like 25% width, and that's so that we could do that sliding layers thing. So in these inners, if we position them so that their left is like negative 75%, then we could see that it's only showing one side, and then we could just actually let's make that transform. All right, so transform, translate x negative 75%. And so again, we have two layers nested on top of each other, and they both have overflow hidden. And so this looks like a quarter width layer. However, it's actually two big layers, just positioned in such a way that it looks like a quarter width layer.
That's right. And will that work for all of them?
Absolutely not. Actually, no, it will. It definitely will.
I updated the image, yeah. So we're getting the correct positioning, correct-ish positioning for all of those.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, cool.
And I'm just looking up some pictures here for us to use.
We need better pictures than this.
Get those. Ooh, walruses?
Did you say walruses?
I did.
Well, I'm gonna put an Orlando picture. I have to represent, We have San Francisco for no reason. So we could add Orlando, we could add Houston. Yeah. I'm gonna do a nice palm tree for Florida.
I'll find a random cityscape for Houston here.
Okay. Yay, palm tree. Except you can't even see it. But that's okay. We could position the images so that they're centered and all of that. Like that's tweaking that could definitely come later.
This could also be background images or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just to keep it simple, we're gonna have them just be images. Oh, that's a nice nice photo. We have a good bluish color contrast going on here.
Yeah. And then what's our last one?
Our last one is, what's one city you've always wanted to go to?
One city I've always wanted to go to.
You know what? Let's do Melbourne, Australia. Because I went there for CSS Conf and I had an awesome time. There were so many great people there. It was a fun, lively conference, and there's cool. There's a really cool image too. So
nice.
Unless you don't want to do Melbourne, I like Melbourne.
I have never been. I would like to go. I've got some friends out there that offered for us to come visit anytime.
But you should absolutely.
Any time is not not very convenient when it's in Australia. So
right. So, all right. For each of these articles, I'm thinking like we have them where they are, and if we go back to the animation, I'm thinking that when you click one, you could just toggle a class, right? And so that class will bring it to the left. It's going to do two things. It's going to bring it to the left, and then it's also going to expand it. And so we want that to be performance, right? So we can't obviously animate width, which is why we're doing this sliding layers thing. And we can't animate left, which is why I'm using translate X to position it.
Yes, so that will, in theory, transition smoothly. So in the JavaScript here, just do a quick class toggle.
And let's agree on the class. What would our class name be? For like active or full, maybe?
I'm fine with either.
All right, let's do full. It's one syllable. Nice and easy. Right. So when we have the full class, we're going to the article is going to be transformed all the way to the left, so that's just we're translating it to 0.
So full is our class.
Yeah, so go ahead and click one and you'll see it maybe work.
Nope.
Did not.
It's possible something's off. Let me check the DevTools. Article is not defined, but it should be.
That's weird.
It is.
Okay, so you click.
Yes.
Second query selector. What did you do?
Didn't do anything.
Oh, no. Sorry, I just said for no reason. Article. Let's see what's happening here. Unexpected token, semicolon. All right, let's get our JavaScript nice and see, so all that's correct.
Yeah.
I think we're good there. I'm being a human linter right now. Bringing out what's going on. All right, so we click, and no errors are showing. So let me see if it's actually adding that. Oh, so yeah, it is adding that class. So that's good, but it's not showing all the way to the left. So let me figure out why. And it's probably my fault. Oh, so it's this lovely thing called specificity. And so for each nth child, I'm setting the translate x to a particular position, and so so we need to bump up the specificity for this full thing.
Well,
what's your favorite way of doing it?
Actually, if you click it now, it should be working-ish.
Oh, cool. Well, what'd you do? How'd that work?
Use the oldest specificity trick in the book by clicking or by moving it towards the end of the CSS. Because source order is important.
Here's another one. I like doing : not hashtag important, which is ironic because it means it's really important. Because now it has that ID specificity thing, but because it's under knots, it doesn't matter if you really use that ID. So that ID could be anything. Anyway, yeah. So that's specificity on steroids. Specificity is really fun.
Another fun trick is just to duplicate the same selector. That will also get the trick without having to type out not.
It's funny because a lot of devs will run into this in their code base because someone else knew of that trick, and they'd be like, what the hell is going on? Why is it ... the same class? But yeah, an even better trick, which has nothing to do with specificity, is that we could set, and gets into more CSS variables, we could set the index CSS variable to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do that. So we don't need to do nth child. But for now, this specificity trick works just fine, and this is a demo, so we're going to go with it.
Yes.
And so we don't even need this double full. We could just do full because Shaw's specificity trick of document order works just fine.
Yes. Okay.
Cool.
So, yep, that's toggling. Now our image is having some issues. So I'm thinking translate x0 as well. And why am I getting an error? Are you?
Because I'm typing.
Hey.
I also added a little transition there.
Yes. Which let's do transition inherit on the inner child. Oh, putting a Bezier in there.
Yeah. So let's see what I want to do. .2, 0, .2, 1. Let's see how that looks like. Because I'm looking at the animation, and it's sort of like a tail end animation where it just goes fast and then eases out to the end, right? All right, so now how do we solve this where you click one and can you explain what you did to make it actually stretch out? Because now it's doing that whole stretch out thing.
Stretch out?
Yeah, the inner.
So the inner has always been full width. It's just been translated over so that it can't actually be seen. So by translating it back, we get the effect of it expanding. Right now, it really only works on the last one. So we need some tweaking here. One thing to do is to
bump up the
Z index. So we get, oh, look at that. That's
now some people use 2, other people use 9,999. It's all just based on your tastes. A little bit more. We need a few more. Okay.
Yep.
I think that should be good.
Yes.
And so as a developer, like you should play around with how many number of nines are most effective for you.
And your team.
And your team. I usually get by with 5 or 6 nines. Sometimes that doesn't work, so just have to keep adding nines.
And one thing I'm doing here is transitioning the Z index. Transition, delay, and then this.
Yeah, so one thing with the Z index is when we're going back from expanded to a collapsed mode, we want the Z index to transition in a way such that it doesn't go back to 0 right away.
Yes.
So trying to think about how we could do that. Maybe we could use a transition on the actual Z index too. And because it's Z index, it's a flip at 50 type of animation. And what that means is because you can't interpolate between Z indexes, at least I don't think you can.
Actually, it should be a smooth transition overall, but it looks like it's going to snap because Z indexes can't be decimal based. So as soon as it hits the threshold of where it would go under another layer, it appears to snap.
Yeah.
As opposed to if we were using translate Z and pushing it out in 3D space and potentially with an angle, you might see a little bit more granular of a transition there.
All right, well, I made the images disappear accidentally, so let me go ahead and fix that. Well, they didn't disappear, they just became really small. Trying to think of the best way to fit these images. Oh, you know what? There's the yeah, I don't know if I want to use that. I just want to censor them somehow. Yeah, object fit. So that's always a property that I have to go back to CSS tricks and look up exactly how it works.
The basic rule of thumb is object fit cover is kind of like background size cover.
Right.
And it's also important to set the image to the actual size that you want it to fill. So in this case, we did have height auto, so that the image would retain its proper dimensions and everything. But instead, we need to have it go to height 100%, so it actually fills the full container and triggers that cover kind of work.
Yeah.
Okay, Z-index transition is not happening right now. Anyone knows why that is, please chime in. This is normally not a problem.
But it is today.
Yes.
Today's a Z-indexy sort of day. Not in a good way.
Hey, there we go. Okay. The problem was the others didn't have, or it didn't have a Z-index initial value to transition to, so it wasn't actually transitioning. It was just going from 999 to auto in that method you're describing.
Right. So there's a problem with this though, and it's that you could. Oh wait, maybe there's not. But you could only click the first image. No. Really.
It's as it's toggling. You have to.
So I guess you have to wait.
Yes. Which we can fix in a few different ways. My favorite being visibility hidden and visibility visible to make the layers a little bit more targeted to what is actually visible of the layer. That'll help quite a bit. Okay, and let me break down the Z-index transition really quick. So I did Z-index, just a real quick transition number because it doesn't need an actual long transition, linear easing, and then a 1 second delay. Now that 1 second delay is only going to apply to the non-full class. Because down here in full, I set transition delay to 0 seconds on both, so that that allows it to be instantaneous when the full class is applied, and then it waits for a second to trigger the transition when the class is removed, which is quite handy. Oh. What are you changing
I'm just
on us?
Well, so looking back on I know I'm going a little bit ahead, sort of, but looking back at the animation, they're sort of centered. The images are centered,
yes,
and so they stay centered. But right now they're like flush left or flush right. So I'm trying to figure out how we could center these.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should probably not play with inner unless, and that might work, actually.
Yeah, kind of. So the issue is the container width and all that.
Yeah, so let's ignore inner and instead think about what we could do with the image. So object fit cover is going to give it its size, but then we have to, I don't know, I guess translate it, maybe.
Okay, so I've done this kind of thing before. Oh man, I'm about to pull up my CodePen dashboard live. Nope, let's pull that over to another tab here. Yeah, do some searches for panel here. And I can break this down a little bit. So what I've brought over here, oh goodness, oh, having some freak out here, is my full panel width expansion pin, where it's basically this exact kind of effect with just hover states instead of clicking. So looking at the HTML really quick, we've got a panel in a panels container and a panel content that is kind of filling the role of our inner. And then what we do down here, I'm actually using a lot of CSS vars on this and some fancy less, and yeah, that's interesting. Well, I have another one, sorry. It is, in theory, a little more simplified. Okay. All right, CSS-Only sliding panels using transforms. Similar kind of idea with a panel and the panel content. Here's the actual hover states. Now with this, I was actually using display flex and then triggering some sliding of the other layers as well. You see the panel.
Mm-hmm.
Where's all that? Yeah. All right. That is not super helpful right now because of the way we have this set up. But the trick here is going to be using inner, but also image. So we can transform, translate x 75%, 50%. Oop, nope. 35%. In theory. Okay, see that now?
Yeah,
it's a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of. So right now, do more like that. It's pretty good. X 25%. So working with some magic numbers here to find that out. Not negative 25%. Possibly just.
I did a little something. I'm adding sort of a transform for each of these articles to like when an article is full, the articles next to it should just go to the right. So, but it's sort of like just shooting off right now.
Yeah.
Which is not exactly the intended effect. Oh, just because I'm doing translate X 300%. I forgot that they're full width. They're not quarter width. So
yes.
If I do 100%, it looks weird, but it works, I think.
Yeah. And one of the ways I triggered the other panel animations in those pins that I was showing was with hover, and with that you can trigger sibling stuff a lot easier. We're gonna have to figure out a way to transition the ones before the full here. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I'm just trying to like going back to the original animation, make it more the photos move vertically as well.
Right.
So, but right now the way we have it, it's is that full height? No, I think it's full width.
So an easy way to kind of fake that is just adding a little bit of scale on the image.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, that feels pretty nice.
Maybe scale it by 1.5 or something like that.
I just did 1.2. Scale gets out of hand so fast.
Yeah, I like that. 1.2. Wow, that's actually a really nice effect.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we're getting that nice kind of offsetting effect with pushing the adjacent articles. Yeah, I feel like there's more of a CSS var kind of solution that would.
I would say so, especially if we have the index of each image on there, and like just have it be 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of having to hard code those the SAS values.
Yeah. And so one way you can do that is just hard coding it in SAS.
Oh my god. I mean that yeah. Okay, so yeah, over here we have a nice refactoring technique then. Makes me want to go to all my old pens and just refactor them using CSS variables. So what you could do is you replace the SAS variables where you can with these CSS variables. And then once you do that, instead of having this nth child or this for loop, we could have it be generated in the HTML somehow and have that be an inline style. And so honestly, that's what I think is the best use of inline styles is CSS variables.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's the only thing that should ever go in inline styles.
It is a nice solution.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why we're getting kind of an offset over on the first image? Is that just on my screen?
You mean like that left padding?
Yes.
I added it.
Oh.
It is a feature, not a bug. In fact, there should be a right padding too. So I'm going to add that.
Well, that would.
Yes. So you could blame me. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
I usually do.
Yeah.
Everybody's so quiet in the chat today.
I'm not getting any messages. Like, oh wait, just kidding. I see messages. So imposter syndrome intensifies. I get imposter syndrome a lot too. You know. But
oh yeah. And looks like we got a retweet from Chris Coyer, so should be getting quite a bit of people tuning in as we go.
Oh, great.
Let's see here. So yeah, that's kind of working from the center of the image for the most part. With that nice transition.
Now, so here's a cool thing. You did CSS. You did CSS variables,
yes.
And so we have this nice --i type thing going on. So I'm thinking, like, and this is one of the best things about CSS variables is that if you look down, if you look at squiggly article, and for those who don't know, this squiggly is the adjacent sibling combinator, which is definitely a mouthful. It just basically means anything next to like that element, in the tree. But we're translating all of these like just 100% away. However, we could make use of that CSS variable and just make them all go more like the animation. If you want. Mm-hmm. I know maybe Shaw might be opposed to it, but like having it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to get that going as you were.
Yeah. So let's do 25% times var I.
Well, we're already at 25%, so it might need to be 50% there.
50. Whoa, we just try numbers until it works. Yeah, so try 25. And here's why. I don't know why. There's a reason why, though. 30?
Yeah.
Looks a little bit off. All right, so let's think about the math here.
So I believe what we need to adjust here is in our JavaScript, changing the toggle from a class to a CSS var.
What do you mean?
So instead of adding the class full, we need to instead target a update a CSS var on the container.
I like that. Okay, so inside this, and yeah, I'll do it here too. I'm guessing that this gets both the actual article and the index,
it should,
right?
Yes.
Cool. And then so over here, instead of this full thing, I mean, we'll keep it there for now, but we could do documents element, which this is just the HTML element. Oh my god. Oh god.
What are you doing?
I don't know. So you're doing it to the actual articles element.
Yeah, okay. Rather than getting hoisting too much up on the document element.
So full.
Yes.
I don't know. Naming things is hard. We're going to set this full over to I.
Yes, and we should probably set articles classlets toggle, and then this dot, what is it, has?
What were you trying to?
Setting the full class on the container instead of the individual
okay.
item, right? Or is
I don't
that?
know. Have you ever heard of the poets by the name of E. Cummings? Or I think that's
Yes.
his name. Yeah, he does his funny poems where he sort of like spaces words out weirdly. The spacing that you had going on there reminded me of that, so I just felt like mentioning that. Very poetic. I like it. It's
Thank you.
but now it's organized, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay, so let's try this again. And okay, I'm getting all of them moving now.
Yeah, so we had to tweak that a little bit.
Yes.
So I think what we're going to have to do is actually still set a class on the article itself, right?
Yeah.
Toggle full. Yeah. So the full is happening in two places. First, we indicate it in the parent, and we indicate it in the child as well. And so we needed like, well, just Shaw's on it, modify the CSS so that we're only paying attention to that whichever article is full. So I guess instead of this full and thing, yeah, that's what we would tweak.
Well, in theory, that's happening. Okay, so var I minus full. So most of my math is guessing, trial and error until we get the right values there.
Yeah. If anyone has questions in the chat, feel free to ask. We would love to clarify anything because we don't want to be the only ones making these animations. We want to empower everyone to create fancy animations like this. Or not fancy. I mean, it's not just the fact that they're fancy, but also the fact that they're going to make your user interfaces look great and function great for your users. So we want to teach you. We don't want to show off because that's not what we're here for.
Okay. So one thing we can do actually is dropping the calc here for now. So we'll do translate x negative 25% just for fun, and then what we'll do is full article transform translate x.
Okay, so you're moving the entire parent a quarter to the left. Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're doing. And so that's going to target, hopefully, every element that comes before. Because unfortunately, there's no before combinator. And so right now, Shaw's trying to fake it.
Yes. So let me just simplify this a little bit.
Dot article.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm missing a brace.
Some comments here.
Oh, I'm missing a brace up here. That's part of the problem. Okay. In theory.
Yep.
Ooh. Slate X.
All right, so step one, shift all articles to the left a quarter. And then here we're shifting articles after the full one to the right. based on their position.
There we go.
Do you not like your parentheses touching? You're doing some serious parentheses touching avoidance here. I mean,
I just like for them to be
to have their
readable.
personal space,
right?
Yeah. You know, yeah, I understand. It's okay.
So one thing we may want to do here is,
I think it's sort of working.
right.
I think we have some calculation.
Right. Plus. Yeah, I'm trying to get it so that if you're clicking the palm tree one, they kind of slide over each other rather than just sliding out a specified amount.
Oh well, if you want to, if you want to do that, then you could just simply translate x 100%. You'll see that works, because that's what we had before. Translate x 100%, and now they're just going to slide on top of each other. See?
Yeah.
And yeah, that actually works. And
so
the reason it's like that is because this translate x cancels out the previous translate x, and so it's as if we're starting from scratch. And so they're all going to be at the exact same position because all of these are absolutely positioned. And so by having translate x 100%, they're all going to be in the same spot.
Yeah, and so I modified up here to do transform translate x 0, and that feels quite nice, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of a nice modification of the original. The way that they leave is a little inconsistent in the animation, so I like having a little bit more of that consistency there.
Yeah, so Ball M on the chat, he asked who, or he or she, I'm not sure, who is your target audience to teach? And so Joseph answered, intermediate devs. What would you say, Shaw?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. The general ideas that we talk about are going to be intermediate level for sure, but
Right.
we're gonna bounce into some some advanced stuff, as well as covering a lot of basics that seem like basics, but they may not be known by everyone. There's so much to CSS that it's really hard to know when to know everything. So some of these little tricks will just come out. Are you getting anything in the chat?
I am
on Twitch.
Did you see anything in the chat?
No, I have not been getting anything in the chat.
Okay.
Which is strange.
Well, they're all saying really, really nasty stuff about you. Oh, so, well, you don't want to see the chat. It's just a dumpster fire right now. Terrible.
You guys,
I'm kidding.
I expect better of you.
I'm kidding. They're not really saying anything.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, sorry. You can go on to the next thing. I'm just making sure I'm.
All right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna jump in the HTML here and add a little bit of text. And so it's going to be and my favorite It's funny, in CodePen, if you type lorem and press tab, maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, but if you press lorem and press tab, you get like this whole full text stuff, and it's great.
Let me, oh,
I have to overflow hidden this whole thing.
Let me open up the HTML so we can see what you're doing here. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm adding text, and this is a fancy font. It's available on Google Fonts. It's called Abril Fatface, and so it's a very fitting name. We're in May. It's not April, so there's no May Fatface though. So we're using Abril Fatface. And let's do one. Let's make this class equals heading so that we centered it. Okay, so the idea is I only want this. I guess we could adjust the size a little. I only want the text at the bottom to show when the articles are full, and so it just fades like softly up. So in the CSS, articles.full, you do plus, and then I call this, let's call it contents, class equals contents, because that's the contents of the article. And you could imagine that if you're doing any sort of web application, that this would be dynamically generated. So content, opacity 1, contents, transform, or sorry, transition, opacity, 1 second, keys out. And so at first it's opacity 0. And so this is just for the effect. So if you click any photo, you'll see that it fades in and out. But of course it slides in too. And actually it doesn't fade, but I'm adding fade. It's an artistic decision.
I'm not getting any fading.
None. And because Shaw hasn't vetoed me yet, so.
I'm not getting any fading.
Out. And we're going to do transform, trans, y. Still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Did I lose your audio?
Check. Maybe so. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, hey, there's your audio back.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
No worries. What happened?
Running a stream is complicated.
I figured.
But yeah, so one of the cool things we have in the stream today is the chat actually in the video of the stream. So you guys are locked in there with us. So any questions you ask will be saved for posterity's sake, and yeah, we look forward to having you guys join us in here and answering our questions as well.
Yeah. So I actually have to get going soon. However, it seems like we have a really nice animation or set of animations going on here.
Yeah,
so.
We're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
Let me see. You keep breaking the HTML here, and that is throwing me off.
No,
okay.
It's you. What did you do?
I did.
Okay. Okay, it's my fault.
Hello, Gollum. Yes. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. It's a little bit deviated from the original, but I can play with that a little bit. If you need to get going, David, that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Or
and blame David for how the rest of this goes down.
Pretty much. I just feel like I'm going to leave and Shaw's gonna be like, all right, here's all the mistakes David made. Let's fix them real quick.
Hopefully so. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah, it's been fun. I'm gonna sign off and hand it over to you.
Yes. We'll see you later, David. Have a good night.
All right. Adios.
Got a little double Shaw there for a moment. Oh. Okay. Let me configure a few things just to get us back on track here. Gotta grab the right thing here. Okay. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing great? Enjoying everything so far? Oh, rad. Chris is with us here. Yes, Joseph, we will share the CodePen URL later on. Gonna set things up a little better so I can see you guys on the chat here now that David's out of here. And also, I just remembered that I am wearing these beautiful stickers. My daughter gave them to me before she went to bed. And we have a pixelated astronaut and a pixelated turtle and a pixelated butterfly. Yes, Sarah Drasner is not here, but maybe one day we can replace David in a great way. Okay, awesome. Let's go back to the animation here, the original. We've got content in each of them. It's sliding out as that's sliding in. So real quick change down here. Let's find what David did. Go full. By the way, we do have some special things happening with the stream in addition to the chat being in there. If you are not currently a follower or subscriber of the Keyframers Twitch channel, I would suggest you do that now. If you like to use Twitch a lot and you actually subscribe to channels and do that kind of thing, I would recommend doing that as well for the Keyframers channel. And there may or may not be a special message that comes up. We also have some links down there in the kind of description panels where you can pledge on Patreon and do kind of one-time donations and things. Not asking for money or anything like that, but there are some special things that happen in the chat. Okay. Joseph asked, how do we get the challenge? He's asking if we decide or they get submitted. We are open to submissions. So far, we've just been picking out ones that we like, that kind of demonstrate a specific technique, or allow us to kind of show off some specific thing we are interested in. Okay, David did do that. It's feeling pretty good, but that easing is not my favorite. Hypervirtual Extreme asked about CSS on WordPress. You can go ahead and ask, man. I use WordPress quite a bit for work, so I will help you if I can. Aha! Hello, Hypervirtual Extreme. Thank you for following. Glad to have you joining us. feeling pretty nice. I spent probably a little too long on making that thing appear, but I think it's worthwhile. Okay, Hypervirtual Extreme. I'm trying to swap images on hover. I cannot for the life of me get it to work with any images I've placed on top of my pages. I've gotten it to work in the background image and the header. What kind of, so just like images in the content you want to swap out when they're hovered? Background image simply doesn't work. Yeah, if you're trying to apply a background image on an image element, that's not going to work. What you can do is have a wrapper around the images. Open up a new pin here. Div image, and let me get some images from the other pin really quick. We can just swap those out. This nice image. And then we'll do background size cover, div hover, image opacity 0. So there's a super simple swap happening. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do that. Transition opacity 0.4 seconds linear, and then we get that nice fade effect. Yeah, a lot of I'll post that in the chat for you if you need to copy anything or see anything there. Yeah, a lot of HTML elements do not have the full spectrum of styles that are capable of being applied to it. So image is one of those. And so yeah, having a wrapper div is usually the first step in making any CSS work. So that's what we do for the sliding layers technique and in most of our pins. Yeah, you can't do everything with just CSS. There is a lot that you can do. It's just not always set up for doing that, depending on the element that you're actually working with. Yeah, if you have any other questions, keep them coming. I'm gonna try and do the content in here. Oops, that's not what we want. Gosh, I wasn't listening when David explained the emit abbreviation for lorem ipsum, so hopefully that works. And then what we'll do here is set this to display flex. Joseph asking about the easing. You got to change it, right? I'm feeling pretty good with that easing. The timing might need to be changed just a little bit, but it's not bad. Okay, what's happening? Display flex direction column. Oh, is it because I'm scaling it? Ah, probably need to bump that down to 70%. Yes, thank you for that Emmett tip there, Joseph. It's helpful. David always likes to do the direct descendant selector. I usually avoid that just because. Content width 25%. It's way over there. It's all shifted. Okay, so if it's 25%, the math on that would be 300%? Yes. Hey, look at that. Okay, so now we have some content appearing underneath. Set that to a little bit shorter, and then copy and paste that. So what I did there was sizing the content to 25% and then translating it over to be centered under there, because we have the inner element translated negatively there. Oops, come back here, Windows. And so let's add a little bit of padding there. 1M. Font size. Where is David setting the font size of all this? David did all the setup on this one, so I feel a bit lost. Let's see. Okay, let's do, instead of specified height, flex auto. Whoa, nope. Flex 10 auto. 70%. This would be flex 0. Yeah, we can do something like that, and then we'll fade those out. Transition, inherit. Going back to the original here. Let's see how that content Okay, yeah, the content's just fading out from the original and also sliding off, but we'll ignore that for now. Transition, property, opacity. And then down here in article full, article content, opacity 0. How's that? Rizzy C asks about the difference between 80% and 80 viewport height, 80 VH. So right now, 80% is 80% of the height of this container. And the container itself is, let's see, yeah, is set to 80 viewport height. In this case, I think 80% will be equal either way, but 80 viewport height is a little more explicit in terms of forcing it to be the certain size that you want, because if this were slightly different in structure, like if site came under a child element or something like that, then that would potentially cause issues with using a percentage height. So viewport height forces it to be exactly that, based on the viewport and not the parent. So probably all of these article contents need to fade out, even though that's not what's happening on the other. I wonder if we could 0. Transition inherit's going to get in our way a little bit here. So opacity linear, do that. Okay, so with full, so yeah, the issue there is the stacking content. If we do that, and then down here, let's see, it's not quite what we want. We've got a lot of sliding layers happening here. One thing is probably speeding up the opacity so that we can just get that content out of there a little bit quicker. Let's see what that looks like. Most of web animation is faking it, so And that's right, Balam. 80% of the parent div versus 80% of monitor size. Yeah, that's why it's good to specify with viewport units if that's what you actually want to use. Editing some things on the stream. Just a moment. I'm gonna try a little calc here. 100%. Let's see how that goes. Ooh, it is pretty cool. Since CSS vars go down in terms of what am I trying to say? Since CSS vars cascade in the same way as a lot of CSS properties, that's why I can use the var I there. Get that. Yeah, a lot of this layout stuff we're gonna fake when we're doing these animations, just because we're more concerned about the animation than anything else. Take that off. Sure why that is flying off in the way that it is. I'm looking at these content areas, not quite going the direction I want. Well, that one is. So I for the first one is actually 0. So let's +1. There we go. here. Sorry for how messy the code gets. That's kind of what happens when you are making things on the fly. For this one, actually, probably just do 0%. Nope. I think the problem with this is that's gonna cut out. Darn. Well, what we can always do is hide it underneath the image. Oh, but we still need 300%. Strange. Okay. I think that's there we go. That's a little more what we're wanting. I mean, it's an interesting effect. I should probably set the z indexes. Relative z index 1. Probably set the relative up there instead. So one thing I've had an issue with lately in Chrome is transforms not working and not transitioning well when you don't have the same exact properties. But that's not the case here. Did I override my transition inherit? I bet I did. Oops. Haha. Never mind. Blaming Chrome. Okay. Speed up that opacity transition. Hello, welcome to the Keyframer stream. Oh, that's not what. That's not what. Thank you. No, that's not what we want. let's forget about that. All right. It's feeling pretty nice. I think we could probably do without the vertical transition there. Yeah, that feels pretty good. We do need to that content there a little bit more, I would say. Maybe add a little bit of the delay on this instead. Actually, let's to get it out. I have never officially done a ASMR, but maybe that's a career option for me. That. It's a bit too slow. Hey, thanks for following. The boss returns. Glad to have you aboard the keyframe train. Sure. We'll go with that. Funnily enough, we are not using keyframes at all in this one. So yeah, hope you can learn a few things, Boss Returns. If you have any questions as I go along, just let me know. Happy to explain anything. As we get to the end, I'll break it down as well to help see it holistically now that it's evolved quite a bit. Okay. That feels pretty good. I think we're almost there. I think. Oh, hey. I can do one more little thing, just adding in the numbers there. Now this is something I always have to go back to the spec for, is looking at the syntax for counter. So I'm using a great little tool here called dash doc. What is it called? Dash documentation browser that always helps look things up quickly. There is never any shame in going to the documentation. I would recommend you using the documentation as often as possible, because there are so many little things that you may think you know everything about a particular syntax or a particular property, but as you dig in, you'll find crazy stuff like, hey, you can increment a counter by -1 to decrement it, decrement, however you would say that. So let's start a counter here and get dash out of the way there. And then that's what we want. Okay. And hey, it's okay to copy and paste too. missing the counter reset. I think we just have to have that up here. Hey, there we go. Actually, is that even necessary? Yes, it is. So yeah, the counter reset needs to be on the kind of common parent of all of these to accurately increment there. Sorry about that. Okay. Oops. So yeah, looking at these numbers, they're quite big. Hey, All Cobbs, thanks for following. Glad to have you with us. Float left. Guys, I just used float. Don't tell anyone. Display flex. No. Align items. Flex start. And take off float left. Change the line height here. Oh. Getting some oddities with the sizing. Not sure why that's the case. I think we probably just need that to be like 0. Sure. There we go. Where is the article or the actual content? There we go. And as usual, we don't specifically make production ready content here. But it is at least something good to learn from. I like to use inherit a lot because it prevents me from having to repeat values. Let's see. Something like that. This is probably not perfectly responsive, but I'll get the idea across. The main thing we're kind of showing here is the sliding layers idea. Let me make a few more tweaks, and then we'll go into the. I'm gonna cheat it here. Since I don't speak Latin, I always just end up removing whatever text doesn't fit into the area that I want. So, apologies to any of you out there who do speak Latin. Just doing some trimming down here for aesthetic purposes. Sorry, Chris. That's it's just what happens sometimes. Let me see here. Oh, no. Okay. I'm looking for it's not text direction. Text align? My goodness, I am failing tonight. How often is it a task for a front-end dev to have to convert a PSD to a web page? I would say that is basically the only task front-end devs have at agencies, at least. It is probably not... it's probably not as common in places where you're continually working on a project, such as the CodePen front end devs are probably not dealing with PSDs and things like that as much. They're probably fixing a lot of bugs and kind of working with the existing UI elements to create new features rather than pulling those from a PSD. All right, I'm just piddling a little bit here. I think I need to set specific width on that to get them constant. Though that did not really. Right. You're right. Does anyone know if you can kind of zero fill the CSS counters, by the way? I'm really not super familiar with that syntax. I feel like it can be done, but I always forget how that. Yeah, that does it. Like that. Feels rather nice and pretty close to the original, if you say so myself. Here, yeah, that got it for me. The content syntax is so weird. I really would be interested in what the meetings were like at what is it, the CSSWG group that put together content. And my goodness, my kingdom for a content attribute function. That would be so beautiful. Unfortunately, don't think that's on the track for anything or for any standards, but man, that would be a huge help. Actually, I might be just being silly here. Let's see. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, not content attribute function, but vars receiving from an attribute. That is the feature that I would love. But yeah, content with the attribute function does work. I'm just talking like a fool here. Let's see. All right. Well, I think it's as good a time as any to start going into Keyflections. This is the part of the show where I, now that David has abandoned me, just go back through and run over everything that we did to make this happen. I'll probably be cleaning up a few things as we go, and just trying to make it a nice, digestible pin for everyone. So if you have any questions, please ask as we go along, as I go along, and I'll try to explain as best I can. So let's look at the original animation, just so we have it fresh in our minds for comparison. This beautiful gallery of articles here that slide over and then slide back in. And this only shows us what the first one looks like, sliding out. So we had to kind of guess, and we took a little bit of liberty with how we made all that happen. So going through the HTML, nothing too crazy happening here, but we have an articles container, an overall site container that's giving us this white box. The heading up top, articles container with 4 articles inside. I don't know why specifically David didn't use just article for these, but you know, redundancy is important, I guess. And each of these articles has an inner div with an image and the content. Remove my special little title here. And this inner wrapper is what's going to help us do the sliding layers technique that I'll break down in a little while. Okay, question from Chevy. Do you enjoy using frameworks in web development or just plain static pages? So I do a lot of both, and as I mentioned before, I actually do a lot of work with WordPress, and WordPress isn't great overall with frameworks right now, unless you just kind of use WordPress as a headless API that you just then populate all your templates with JSON from the WordPress API. But I have found some really good ways to work with Vue and WordPress. And I set up a really simple Vue template that's nothing special. There's the link in the chat there. But this just allows you to kind of integrate Vue components with WordPress a little bit. It's mainly Webpack doing the heavy lifting here, but one of the great pieces of it is, okay, not in functions, but in here, you can actually toggle over to a development mode within WordPress, so that you can start up your Webpack dev server locally, and then an option in the WordPress admin bar at the top appears, and you can turn on the dev refreshing. And what that does is it basically just instead of enqueuing the normal compiled code, it instead enqueues the localhost main.js. And that is so handy for just adjusting your styles or making changes on the fly on the live server without it actually affecting live users of it. It only appears on your template. So anyway, I've been using Vue a lot for that, and continually finding ways to integrate that a lot more. On some of our smaller sites, it'll all be Vue based. All right, so back to the review here. So articles with article content, and then the main down here is going to be our fake article that comes in. All right, and then let's look at the JavaScript. So we've got our articles container here, and then we're using array from to loop through all of the article elements. Array.from has a second argument in there. Again, another reason to go back to the documentation and study it. So the map function there just loops over every element of the array. If we were saving this to an array, then we would need to like return article. But because we just want to loop over everything and we don't need to save a reference to it, we can just use that map function. And so we add a click listener to the article, to the individual article. And what that does is whenever it's clicked, the articles container gets a full class, and the article itself gets the class full. So that allows us to create some great styles. Nothing too crazy happening with the overall setup of the layout, but the main thing to note is each article is position absolute, and then it's actually put into place with the help of CSS vars and this little Sass loop here. The Sass loop is just giving it the current index as the CSS var I, and then the transform translate is actually what positions them out into that grid format. And ideally we would have maybe a few more CSS vars that help set the number of items and allow for a little bit better of a little bit less magic number to get everything in place. But for 4 items, 25% times the index minus 1, because we are starting the indexes at 1 to get everything positioned correctly. Then inside of the article, the inner wrapper is position absolute, and then it is transform translated x 75%, and that negative 75%, and that bumps it all the way over to the edge so that it's not overlapping the other elements. I suppose it would be play with the z indexes there to really show that. But anyway, that gives the appearance of a just 25% width container when it is actually 100% width. If you see our article here, see it's taken up the full width, and our inner element is shifting everything back so that it just looks like it's that tiny sliver of it, or that quarter of it. And then same for all of those. That's great. And then I've got these as display flex with flex direction column, so that the image and the text here are kind of balanced out. There's probably some other ways that could have been accomplished, but I'm most comfortable with flex. I just drop it in whenever I need a little bit of help laying things out. And then we wanted the image to kind of expand from the center, since the center of the images usually contains the most visual interest. So the image itself is the full width of the container, and it's also translated back so that it's now hanging off the edge of the inner. So here's our inner, and the image is now shifted back so that we get that nice kind of centered effect. And the article content is set to width 25%, which is what our articles are supposed to appear as. We have to kind of use these magic numbers here to get that to happen. And then it's transform translated X 300%. Anyone know why? That's right, because our inner container is still the full width of this area, and it is translate X negative 75%. So since this is 25%, it needs to move over 300% of 25%, which is 75% of the parent, so that it gets centered under the image there. And then we've got the counter that just allows us to have that nice little number next to it. And then our main content is just position absolute down below to come in. Ideally, this would be a real container with overflow scroll, so that the article comes up. Great, we can read it. And we didn't bother with that because, hey, this is a 2-hour show. Okay. So going back to our JavaScript, we remember that we're adding full to the articles, as well as the individual article that's clicked. So whenever the articles container has the full class, that tells each article to shift from where they're currently transform translate X 25% times I, to translate X negative 25%, to shift them off somewhere over here. So you can see that happening with all these left ones here. Man, I just want to point at the screen, but that's not helpful for you guys. So the article content shifts over. And yeah, we don't need that. And if you notice, when I click the first one, they're actually shifting to the right. And then if I click this one, you can see that number 4 is also shifting to the right. Well, we do that using this adjacent element selector. So remember, we added the full class to the container, and we also added the full class to the article that was selected. We could be a little bit more specific here. And so what's happening there? The articles adjacent, well, sorry, not adjacent, after the selected article, the full article, are transform translated X to 100%, which is all the way over here, because they are 100% width. And then we start to get into the sliding layers, where the full article becomes transform translate x 0, so that it is now just taking up the full container, and the inner and image within that full article are set to translate x 0 as well, so that all of those negative and positive transforms are now canceling each other out, so you get this nice smooth transition into that. Is z-index 999 arbitrary? It always is. Yeah, z-index is one of those things that it's always going to be a little bit crazy. Hey, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but thanks for following. Appreciate you. Yeah, in this instance, z-index could be 2, and that's going to be plenty. But 999, if you go back and watch the feed, we actually did a nice little bit about a large number of 9s, but hey, yeah, there's no significance to it there other than this z-index is higher than the default z-index. Well, not default, the original z-index that we set down here. And that is one issue that we ran into, is we are performing the transition on the z-index as well, and without setting the z-index initially, it actually was having some trouble with the transition, because the default value was auto instead of 1, so it wasn't able to interpolate those numbers. Continuing along, the article content for this is just kind of sliding out at a slow rate. If we take that off, yeah, I guess it's fine either way. We don't really need that. Let's see. Kind of like it with it on there. It moves a little bit slower. 75%. There was some value there that would kind of cancel out the movement, but it's 50. Yeah, that might work. Nope. I don't know there. Let's see. No, not using Bootstrap or anything other than, let's see, we've got normalize happening there, which really just helps with cross-browser support. Yeah, it's not a... I typically will not use Bootstrap just because it's almost always overkill. See. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to take that out so that we get the content all moving the same there. And we could use that CSS var to kind of introduce some delays and play with things like that. Just don't have time for that tonight. But yeah, that's the gist of it. Let's click through a couple times, get some nice clean takes of it. Ooh. Look at that. That is phenomenal. Yeah, that about wraps it for creating this animation. Thank you guys so much for joining. I've got my outro bit here, but if you if you have any questions, just ask. I'll be happy to answer and show you guys anything as I go. Get my fancy outro music happening here. You've been watching Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. You can follow us on Twitter and Twitch at Keyframers, just at Keyframers, to get notified when we'll be streaming next. We'll also have this video available soon if you weren't able to catch the full live stream, so keep an eye on our Twitter for the link. And if you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more from David and I, or just I, you can head over to patreon.com/keyframers to support us on an ongoing basis so we can continue to release great content and expand Keyframers. We've already got some great patrons supporting us, including the wonderful Chris Coyer and Lewis, however you would pronounce his last name, sorry, and the team at CodePen. So you would be in great company if you supported us on Patreon. And we are accepting submissions for future episodes. So if you come across an animation that you would like to see us make, or if you have questions about CSS or animation on the web, we would love to answer that for you. So tweet at us at Keyframers, and we'll try to answer those or attempt those submissions that you give us. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for your support. It means a lot to us, and until next time.